Friends, gold is unstoppable. It has gone up more than 81% in the last 5 years and almost 20% in the last 12 months. It's happening. Central banks are ditching the dollar and U.S. treasuries and buying more gold. The good news, it's predicted to go up more. UBS even said it will go up to $5,000. Noble Gold Investments' phone has been ringing nonstop. Everyone wants to protect their retirement with gold, and you can do the same. Noble Gold Investments can help you secure some gold to protect your future. From day one, you work with the same dedicated all-American expert. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced investor, Noble Gold Investments will make sure you get all the help you need. And this month, Noble Gold Investments will give you a free quarter-ounce gold standard coin if you open a qualified account. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com now. That's noblegoldinvestments.com.
Police aren't who you think they are. The sheriff is not who you think he is. Banks do not do what you think they do. Governments don't operate anywhere near the way you think they do. And that's why today, when you look at what's going on in the world today, none of it makes any sense. It's all crazy. It makes no sense at all. Seems very destructive. But actually, in point of fact, you don't know how the system works. It's working perfectly fine. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and the people, the masses, are entertained with television and alcohol and drugs, and the wealthy continue to get wealthy, and so it's working perfectly fine once you understand how the world really works, and nothing works the way you think it does.
Ordinary story, as I said, about the deception that goes on throughout the world about the real world and how it actually works. So all I'm suggesting is that you might want to take some time out of your life and start looking at the reality of the world you live in, because the world is growing more and more dangerous, more and more ignorant, and extremely violent. And unless and until the people rise up and decide to take back their sovereignty and do something about their lives and quit waiting for government to do something, you know, because in America, we Americans love to talk about how we have the ability to elect our leaders. We're big on talking about how we can elect our leaders. But as Dick Gregory once said a long time ago, yes, we can elect our leaders, but you can't select your leaders. You don't select anyone. Your masters who own you will select who will run. You can merely vote on whoever they decide to allow you to vote on. It's just a poll. And so every 4 years, Americans go to the poll to tell their masters who own them, and they do own you. Your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. You need to understand that. And so every 4 years, your masters who actually own your body want to know which one of these individuals that work for us, they work for the corporation, you work for the company, but which one of these would you feel better about having at the head of the company? Which one do you personally like? All 6 of them work for the company. They work for the government, period. But which one do you particularly like? Because this way, if you particularly like one and you vote for him, then we will make him the president of the company, and you will be happy because it was your choice. No, it wasn't your choice. You didn't have the opportunity to select your leader. You only had the opportunity to elect one of the 6 that they gave you, and all 6 work for the same company.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free, we're winning. I'm still not fully comfortable saying this, probably because I don't believe it's quite true yet. But I would say we're at the intersection and we're taking that right turn. for winning. Okay, let me put it this way. And thank you also, my fellow truth seekers. Here we go. Everybody, thank you so much for your purchase. It supports our channel, supports our staff, supports our work, but also it supports the message. So let's dive into it. I will say the very first thing I'll say, disclaimer, I'm not a prophet. I'm not trying to make a prediction. I'm not trying to say I'm seeing something. This is mainly derived from data, and I will let you know exactly when I go into speculation. Okay, so I believe, based on the data that I've gathered and based on the years and years and years of research, that we are fast approaching maybe the last, but definitely one. I don't know if it's the last big event. I think we're almost out of time. And when I say big event, I think they are trying to make it 2020 or bigger. So I'm not certain that Ukraine was that kind of event. I'm not certain that Israel was that kind of event. I think they were events of a certain scale, but not of the worldwide scale. I just don't think that you can turn, unless you do something very, very bad, horrific bad, you can turn a regional conflict, even if it involves a lot of people, into a worldwide thing. With 2020, they did, right? That was the big thing. And here's why I think that. So the plans are laid out, the timetable, we're getting very, very close. So 2030 is their deadline to have certain things in place. But I mean deadline. It has to be in place. And so they've signaled multiple times over the decades that all those dramatic changes that they want to make in society, the AI and especially the transhumanist changes, but also the way that people perceive government, authority, the restructuring of society, all those major changes cannot happen, and they will not happen unless there are huge events. 2020 showed us this. Some people have, some things they were only able to do and implement, like digital passports, digital health passports, like proof of immunization to enter any public spaces, all of that. That would not have been possible ever without the event. But this event, and they had to know this beforehand. I just don't think they knew the magnitude. Also shook people and literally awakened them, like it shook them out of their slumber. And so it had definitely, they knew they were going to lose a lot of people through it, but also they were going to further hypnotize more of them. Currently, we're in an interesting and an important phase. And the reason why I bring this up is not fear mongering, because by now, if you're here, you feel it and you know it too. A lot of people feel this too. Within our truth and freedom community, people that are highly visible, that you might know by name or seen their work, some of them are already pulling back. They're not traveling anymore. They are not they're not going to any events. They're not taking on any speakerships. None of that. They're already scaling back and sort of, I'm gonna just, I did what I could, and now let's wait this out, sort of kind of thing. I can't tell you about the timing. I assume it's this year. A lot would speak to this year. A lot would speak to the next months, but that's pure speculation. But that it is coming, I'm almost certain. I think they have one more big one up their sleeve, but it will be hard to pull off. You will have to find an unknown threat. I mean, it could be the alien thing, right? But it would have to be so novel. It would have to be so unprecedented that no pre-designed reaction would fit the bill, if you know what I mean. So it would have to be so crazy or so outlandish that people would just be hypnotized by the sheer outlandishness of the event, and then have no reference, no history, no context as to what they could possibly do about it. So the only guidance could come from official channels. That's the kind of event that I think it would be. And I don't want to put any images out there because I don't have them. All I'm just saying, this could be of a cyber nature, this could be of another nature, but what we have now still, maybe days, maybe weeks, maybe months, but we still have it. We still have an opportunity to talk about fundamental truths, realities, facts, philosophies, religions, and we have the ability to still dissect these things as the pressure point has not arrived yet. This is the same with 2020. When 2020 came around, there was only one subject, and you could. It doesn't matter what you talked about, but who. If you didn't talk about the subject, no one was listening because that's all that people could think about. And then it sort of morphed into bigger and bigger stories, into bigger and bigger context, and it started morphing into a, if you will, into a grander exploration of truth, because the pressure was released slowly but surely, and so people had more bandwidth and space to now, okay, so what else is a fraud? What else is fake? What else isn't true? And now we have many pressure points. Don't get me wrong. People have economic pressure points. People are priced out of living. They're basically priced out of life. There's a lot of pressure points. But there is not one pressure point that affects everyone at the same time. And when that isn't in place, and that's only been in place in 2020, by the way, we've never had this before, right, in our lifetime. Even the world wars weren't like that. They included a lot of people, but not everyone. And there were places that were completely, especially since this wasn't the TV and internet era, there were places that were just doing life, not really knowing what was going on. But 2020 was this mass pressure point event, and I see another one coming, and this one must be bigger, must be stronger, must be more intense. When that pressure point comes, we won't be able to talk about anything but that pressure point, if we will be able to talk about it at all. There's a big chance that when that pressure point, that big event arrives, that I won't be here, we won't be here, this won't be available, it'll be shut down, it'll be compressed, it won't be there. I think for a short period of time, it will hypnotize even part of the awakened and awakening community, and they'll snap out of it pretty quick. But this will, what we talked about yesterday, the split, this will be like 50 years in a moment of split energy. And basically, when that event arrives, whatever the nature of it will be, if you speak against it, against the validity of it, or if you dare to think it isn't quite real, it was artificially created, it will be like saying, it will be like today saying there was no Holocaust, right? Or making such a statement like that. It will be like that. Or slavery never existed in the United States, or whatever. It will be so... It'll be so crazy if you don't believe the narrative, if you don't go with the narrative, you will be not just deemed crazy in a tinfoil hat. And even when in 2020 people got very vicious and they told on their neighbors and they reported to the police anyone who didn't follow the guidelines, it's going to pale in comparison. It has to. This is not prediction. This is not prophecy. It's a logical progression. You cannot go, if you want a bigger effect, you cannot go with lower pressure. It doesn't work like that. The pressure has to be increased and increased and increased with every event that comes. And if this is the big event that I think it will be, then the pressure will be increased dramatically. It has to be, or people wouldn't react to it. We've had a desensitization over the last years unlike anything we've ever seen. And it's not because people are not empathetic. As a matter of fact, a lot of you are more empathetic than ever, but you smell the bullshit. You know when you're being lied to much clearer, much faster. You're not falling for it. And when you're not falling for it, you're not investing your emotional energy. It doesn't mean you're not compassionate if somebody is in a precarious situation or has experienced something bad. It simply means that you are not going with this mass emotional manipulation story and get all sucked in. You you tune in at your own volition. You tune in and you feel what needs to be felt, but you're not hypnotized by it. And this is, of course, this is the greatest danger if you're not hypnotized. Now you remain creative, you remain calm, you remain in charge, and that's of course what they don't want. So I could see it this year. I'm not saying I have any background knowledge or insider knowledge. It's just a lot of things would make sense for this year. But if not this year, I'm pretty certain next year. And could it be prevented? I don't know. I don't know if the event can be prevented per se. I think the nature of it can be altered by our perception, awareness. I also believe the reaction and the aftermath can be. It's very, very, very difficult, as you saw in 2020. It's very difficult to keep a narrative going. They did it. They were like, nobody believes us, or very few people believe us when we say the cloth thingies do the thing where the 6 feet does it, but we're just do it anyways, and we'll just keep flip-flopping. And people just did it not because they believed it. They did it because they wanted to have some normalcy, go to a restaurant, go to a place. Most of the people didn't really believe that would do anything. And those who did, well, you know, what can you do? You can't fix that. So the purpose of this is in no way, shape, or form to create any fear momentum whatsoever. This was always going to happen. Listen, if you have constructed a system, I'm talking about from the perspective of those dark forces, if you will. If you've constructed a system and invested a plethora of generations and lifetimes and all resources and hidden knowledge, occult knowledge, basically all your energy into creating this momentum that we're in right now, you're not going to just let up. I think people don't appreciate the sheer organizational power and the structure that's behind this. We've weakened it significantly, but it's not gone by any stretch of the imagination, and they're not stopping until they are defeated and annihilated completely. That's just not, that's, it's like saying if you just light up enough flashlights, the night will cease to exist. It doesn't just cease to exist. The night's still there. You can light it up, but the night is still there, and the darkness is still there, and they are still here, and they're not letting go. And that's a fact that you can observe that by what is being implemented, and by what is being done, and by how it negatively affects people. We just had a bill in Tennessee that outlawed geoengineering and the spraying of chemtrails. I mean, you know, it's a conspiracy theory, but just in case it's true, they outlawed it. They're still doing it. They just passed a bill not too long ago that would have to classify, and this is how crazy it gets, have to classify any food that contains a vaccine would have to be labeled as a drug. It's not that they outlawed the very fact that you could put a vaccine in food. Thank you so much, Charlotte. Really appreciate your contribution. It's not that. They just said you have to label it as a drug. They're still at it, friends. And okay, so what I probably dislike the most is false hope, because there's real hope, more than hope. There's this knowing of who we are, what human spirit does, and how it operates, and how wonderful it is, how powerful it is. And that the fact that we're still here talking, the fact that we're still here acting, the fact that we're out there inspiring together millions of people who are all doing their thing in their little sphere and changing, the fact that this is still here despite the onslaught, the attacks, and the war we've been exposed to in everything: food, water, air, electromagnetic. Thank you so much for your contribution. Really appreciate it. All that has been going on for such a long time, and we're not just still here. We're actually thriving on many levels. Spirit is thriving. Spirit is awakening. Spirit is expressing itself. Spirit is healing. Spirit is loving. Spirit is uniting. Spirit is harmonizing. That is not just a true hope, that's the way out. But to pretend, and that's what I don't like, this lying to ourselves that they are defeated, they're gone, they don't do anything anymore. It's all just a show. That's what bothers me the most, because it gives people a sense of false hope and false comfort, and that is about the most demoralizing thing, when then something does occur and you go, shit, I was on a completely wrong track. So we're at war, we're on a battlefield, shields up, weapons up, um, and metaphorically speaking, shoot to kill, friends, shoot to kill. We're this is not a drill. And what is the killer, the greatest killer right now of all this deception is truth. That's it. Truth is the liberator. It's love, it's divinity, but it's also the killer of lies and deception. In its very nature, it eradicates, it annihilates the falsehoods and the deceptions. So truth must be spoken now. It must be represented. It must be first seeked, of course, right? I mean, we are truth seekers, but it must be so clearly shown, even when everybody is standing against you because they don't want to see it. They don't want to believe it. They don't want to let go of their comforts. Fuck that. You have to just ignore that. You have to be so strong that you can stand on your own and go, yes, as a matter of fact, all of you are wrong. And that's okay. Not to gloat, not to elevate yourself, but if you have an accurate piece of information and they don't, it doesn't matter how many there are and how often they repeat their lie, it doesn't make it truth. It does not make it truth. And for some things we're standing strong as an army of millions, and for some things we're still very, very few. And that's okay. They will join. Some will join, more will join, more will join. We have to stand strong, and we have to repeat that too. There's a thing about repetition. It's like when you learn something new, it's not usually, it's sometimes it's enough. When it's so impactful, when you have such an emotional experience, once is enough. But for the most part, you have to repeat that. You have to learn thinking in the new ways. You have to teach your cells, teach your whole being to adapt and integrate the truth. And so every time you speak it, it becomes more familiar, and your cells begin to remember, because ultimately they know truth. Your body begins to remember, you begin to remember, and then it becomes a coherent experience. And as somebody says so beautifully, if you can't explain something simply, you simply don't understand yet. It's a beautiful thing. It's true. But that's the period that we're in. I don't fear this event whatsoever. I believe everybody has intuition and guidance. Follow that. I mean, by all means, as a general, I don't feel inspired to go into big crowds. I haven't in years. That's just as a general rule. But sometimes I have the clear guidance to go certain places where there are more people, and it's okay. I follow that. But sometimes I'm scheduled to go somewhere, or it was just planned, and I feel, I don't question that. Don't question that. Just trust it. Tune in and listen. This is really, really important. When this event unfolds, it will absolutely display some horror. It has to. In order to have the desired effect on people, it will have to display horror. It will have to create clear lines in the sand. The narrative must be clear. There can be no mistakes. There can be no double speak. It must be very clear. So you get people on board immediately, and they are team CNN or team whatever, team mainstream, right? So when that event comes, the greatest, because if the internet doesn't work, or if our ability to speak will be even more stifled than it is now, as a matter of fact, we are surprised that we're still here, by the way. We are. But if this is not available, don't despair. You have it. It being the inner compass, you have it. You have intuition, you have guidance. You ultimately know how to connect to it. And sometimes it helps to have an externalized form, like somebody who seems to be speaking your mind, just because we're tapping into the same thing, my friends. It's not because I'm so special. It's because we're tapping into the same thing. We're tapping into the same field and we're receiving the same information. That's literally what it is. It's nothing else. And so this is where we stand. Can we accept the beautiful and at the same time challenging moment for what it is? Acceptance, here we are. And how can we be of assistance so that whatever is about to unfold and come our way, so that we can remain calm? It's the same things as always. Go into nature, balance yourself, meditate and pray. Those are always important things. Drink lots of good water, and ultimately know you. This is all finite. This reality is finite. This experience is finite. It is very limited, and you are not. Your body is finite, but you are not. So, you know, I'll never forget. We used to go to one of the coolest dudes ever. He was a healer, so he was an energy healer. But there was no white robe. There was no nothing, no bullshit. It was a guy actually in a teeny tiny ground level apartment. It was a shady shack, and he would sit there, chain smoke, and drink espresso. You'd come in and you'd lay down and he work on you, and he worked miracles. He was wonderful. um a wonderful teacher, but none of the guru BS, none of the white robe elevated BS. And he said sometimes people walk in and they want help, and they are so far, because usually people only go to energy healers, especially the mainstreamers, when everything else has failed. So it's like stage 4, nothing works, 3 chemos, then they go to him. And sometimes he had to say, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you, you're going to die. But that's not bad, that's not a bad thing. And of course this would, it would freak people out, but he said no. Just, tune into that. Tune into, this is your next experience. This is where you're going, and soon. And if you make peace with it, it'll all be good. So I've made peace with the transition a long time ago. So I'm good. If it happens, I'm totally good. I ultimately think we're moving into a way of life again where we choose our exit, and where we choose it consciously. It's not a violent event. We don't have to kill this body. We don't have to violate it in any way. We choose, and of course, there's a method to it. Um, and initiation is required to learn that method. But then you exit the body peacefully, no trauma. And when there's no trauma, the transition is smooth. And when the transition is smooth, whatever comes next, you'll be in a good state. So, and the other thing that came to mind that I wanted to share with you all, I spent my summers on boats as a kid. Sometimes weeks at a time out on the water. And we, it just becomes second nature. So on a boat, to me, it's like literally like a fish in water. But I remember there were times when we traveled out in the open. We were far away from the mainland, and we knew we were approaching a rough patch, like, just lots of high waves or even a storm. And I remember for the most part, we were just goofing around and having fun. And then I remember maybe about half an hour or so, or even an hour before before we got into the storm or into the rough patch, my dad would usually say, okay, it's time to get serious now, right? All hands on deck, pay attention, basically heads on a swivel, and be here now. I'm paraphrasing, because when you're in the storm, it's not that you can't weather it, but you have to have your head in the game. So the message is, we're in the storm. Keep your head in the game. This will not last forever. We will not be in such a weird flux state and in a state of whatever this is forever. We won't. But now we're in it. And so when we ground ourselves and balance ourselves and just accept that this is the moment that we're in, we can remain so much more creative, so much more balanced, and we can have so much more um, creativity, ideas, and pull through. And we'll pull through. And we'll break this game up once and for all. I have nothing but faith. That's why I'm here. That's my mission. You and I, we don't all have the same mission, thankfully so, because you're needed in another capacity. Everybody is needed in their own capacity. And every capacity is as important as the other. We all are important in this. None of us are less important or more important. None of this works if we pull back and do not do what we came here to do. This is the most important information I could ever share. That my life was difficult, my life was challenging only in the past, only because I tried to basically put my head through a wall and pretend that what I felt deep inside wasn't as important as what my mind told me would be cool to do or I should do. When I aligned with what my purpose is, what I chose, everything started falling into place. Everything started working out. It's not that everything is without challenge or it's always easy. But when you're in that flow, when you're in alignment with your mission, your purpose, and you feel it so clearly when that happens, boy, you're so powerful that every bump in the road is just that. It's a bump in the road. And you know how to deal with it. You know how to move on from it. And you know how to recover and even become stronger through it and thrive. And you have that as well. I just wanted to let you know, in case you've forgotten, in case you haven't told yourself and nobody else has lately, you matter. You're significant. Look that word up, please, in all of its glory. Significant. You are meaningful. Your presence is meaningful. Whether you're 15 or whether you're 85, your presence is meaningful and important. And even though you and I have never met in person, I mean, a very few we have, I can feel that. I can feel that through this medium. I can feel your significance. And I appreciate you. And I want to thank you for your presence and for everything you do. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Lee, so much for your contribution. And everybody, this is available for like, I think 48 hours left. Love the sparks and the looks and the questions we've already received for this one. It's in the video description, the link to this Truth Seeker shirt, and there's hoodies and everything. But I think wearing it, you know, I love the previous ones that we had, but right now wearing this just feels very, very powerful. I don't know why, but I love it. So thank you all so much. We love you. We appreciate it. We'll be back with you again very, very soon.